Order. The clerk is taking the roll silently. All senators are excused until they arrive. Minutes were distributed electronically. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, they're approved as distributed. Today we have one bill to take up in the Commerce Committee, Senate Study Bill 1170 with Senator Breitbach.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. This is a subcommittee report signed by myself and you. Senator Bolton decided to withhold at this time. I'll present that to you.
You are in order.
Senate Study Bill 1170 is an act relating to workmen's compensation, including effective date and applicability provisions. Prior to workmen's comp, employees were required to prove that an employer was negligent in order to collect medical and lost wages due to a workplace injury. In 1913, Iowa adopted its first workmen's comp system. First, the purpose of workers' comp is to provide compensation to workers hurt on the job, regardless of who was at fault, by making the employer responsible for paying medical costs and for wages lost by the employee. This strict liability system saves time and money that otherwise would be spent litigating fault in these injuries. Workers' compensation provides appropriate medical care with the intent of allowing workers to return to work. Depending on the severity of the injury, workers' compensation also provides meaningful indemnity. It is the safety net of employment. The system was established so employees would have a certain and easy process to follow in the case of a work injury. It was established to specifically stay out of the courtroom, to avoid all the complications, legal fights, or legal fees, and litigations associated with adjudication. We want to maintain the original intent of the law. I believe this law returns the proposed bill returns the intended balance, protecting employees, employers, and ensuring everyone is paid in a timely manner while providing the intended predictability. Sorry about that. With that, that concludes my opening remarks, and I would entertain other questions.
Thank you, Senator Breitbach. Is there discussion? Senator Bolton, you are in order.
Thank you, Senator. First of all, I was a part of that subcommittee, and very much one thing became very, very apparent as we went through this legislation. This is something that is completely a one-sided fix of the work comp system. And as we went through speaker after speaker, we saw how far-reaching this legislation actually is. And if we pass this in its current form, we are going to be truly dismantling a system that is designed to protect Iowa workers who suffer disabling injuries at their workplace. These are the workers who show up and make our economy run. And when things happen to them at work that knock them out of their careers, they need to be treated with respect and dignity related to those injuries. Respect and dignity in terms of the medical care that is provided to them. It should be reasonable, it should be easily accessible, and it should be trusted. They need to be treated with respect and dignity in terms of how they are able to return to the job that they perform. Respect and dignity in terms of when their career ends, not being treated like a system abuser, but treated by the person who they are, who they were, and who they want to be. When we talk to each other about who we are, and you introduce yourself for the first time to someone, think about how you introduce yourself. You say, "Hi, I'm Nate, and I'm a state senator." Well, if you're a tire builder, you say, "Hi, I'm Steve, and I build tires." And this is a sense of pride in our workforce. These are the workers who make our economy run. And when I look at this legislation, I look at things that treat them in a way that is unforgivable. And we have to be serious about fixing this bill before it goes any further than it has already. If we look at some of the things that this bill does, it treats older workers as second-class citizens. Workers that want to work into their 60s and 70s are now being treated very, very differently than other workers in the workforce. Their rights to recoveries are limited. We're treating workers who are permanently and totally disabled sometimes at young ages, as if that, first of all, in our work comp system currently, they never get a raise again. They are frozen in time at the date that they are injured on how they're going to be paid. And then they hit age 67. Under this bill, we cast them aside. They're done. They would have obviously earned more benefits, earned a better retirement had they been able to keep working, but for this disabling injury that took place at work that knocked them out of gainful employment altogether. So when we sit here and we act like the workers who count on this system should be treated poorly because we want to fix the system and fix some decisions and control the cost and predetermine the outcome, who are we really affecting? And it's the Iowans that we should be there to protect. It's the ones who we count on to make our economy run. There are so many aspects of this legislation that do so many things that will harm workers in their job. We talk about determining the majority factor in what causes an injury, which sounds pretty good, until you actually start to talk to doctors about how they're going to precisely determine what percentage of that shoulder claim is related to the day in, day out work activities that are being performed, or the percentage associated with lifting up your child or grandchild on the weekends and playing with them. And they'll tell you, I can do the best I can, but I don't know what you're doing every hour of every day. I don't know what you're doing in terms of your hobbies and other activities, but I have a pretty good idea that this work you were performing at least substantially contributed to the cause of your injury. But now we're going to say that that's not enough. We have to have a doctor certify within a reasonable degree of medical certainty that this is the majority cause of their injury before it goes forward. And we're talking about cumulative trauma injuries of workers who day in, day out, year out, put their bodies on the line. And those are the workers we are disadvantaging if we move this bill forward. We are disadvantaging workers who return to work, do the best they can to keep working to support their family by saying, we're going to cut you off from loss of earning analysis because you were willing to get back to work and keep doing the job to the best of your ability for as long as you could. We're going to punish small employers who can't come up with make-work jobs and light-duty jobs more easily than large employers. I mean, this legislation does a lot of things that really, at the end of the day, are wrong. They're simply wrong. It takes the most severe injuries and minimalizes benefits for those severe injuries. It will increase litigation over when an injury should have been known. It's going to force people to go hire an attorney earlier in the process to protect their rights. And it's all because we want to fix the system. It's disappointing that it's gotten this far. It's disappointing it's in this committee, the Commerce Committee, as opposed to the Labor Committee. For the life of me, I can't understand why a bill like this, which affects workers' rights so directly, is being treated like a cost of business issues before the Commerce Committee. But here we are. And so with that, I would really suggest to my fellow senators around this table to pause and think about what message we are sending to our workforce today. We did a bill earlier this year that took away public sector bargaining rights from a lot of employees. We're not talking about just public employees anymore. We're talking about private sector, public sector employees who are working right now, who may suffer an injury next week and find out that their rights have been diminished. Because that's the other part of this legislation that is disappointing. An immediate effective date. So if you're going to get injured, you better hope you get injured this week, not next week. That's disturbing. Most of this legislation is disturbing. And I'm someone, as a workers' compensation attorney, who has sat there and talked with clients, who have, through tears, expressed their frustration with having to redefine who they are after a disabling work injury. They're people that want to get back to work. They're people that want to be a productive citizen, as they always have been in our society. And when we do things like this, it's wrong. Thank you.
Senator, further discussion? Seeing none, return to Senator Breitbach for closing comments.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your comments, Senator Bolton. I appreciate your concerns. One of the things that I'd like to say is that please keep in mind most work comp injury claims are temporary. In fact, most, in my experience, have been, they involve medical only. They don't even qualify for loss of time reimbursements. I think most employers that I know treat their employees as their family. They want them to get better. They want them to have the best treatment available. They want them to come back and work for them. I think if you're an employer, you realize how much it costs to put an employer or an employee on your payroll. They are not disposable. They're not throwaway. These people have families. If you're from a small town, you know them, you know their family. Their kids go to school with your kids. And we don't want to throw them away. We want to make sure that they can get the best care that they need. We want them to be back in the workforce. We don't want them seeing them saddled at home with bills they can't pay and things like that. So I think we can make some improvement on this bill, and I think that if, in the long run, this will be a good bill for us to pass, and I would encourage my fellow senators to pass this bill, and I would move for its passage.
Senator Breitbach has moved the bill. How would you wish to vote? A record roll call has been called for. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Breitbach.
Aye.
Senator Peterson.
No.
Senator Allen.
No.
Senator Bertrand.
Aye.
Senator Bolton.
No.
Senator Feenstra. Senator Booth.
Aye.
Senator C. Johnson.
Aye.
Senator Lycum.
No.
Senator Mathis. No. Senator McCoy.
No.
Senator Sinclair.
Aye.
Senator Zahn.
Aye.
Senator Zumbach.
Aye.
Nine ayes, 6 nay.
9 ayes, 6 nay. The bill will move to the calendar. Any further discussion before the committee? Seeing none, Senator Bolton moves we arise.